Hello, here we have two 4K TVs marketed as mini LED models. However, they have some very noticeable differences. Let's start with their screens, which are LCD, which means liquid crystal displays. Both models use quantum dot color technology. Samsung claims its TVs have the certification to back it up and boasts about it. They also display a logo stating that their TVs are cadmium-free. I don't know if these certifications are real, or perhaps they are, but we don't know if the claims actually apply. We'll just have to take their word for it. But look, it's not like we're going to smash the TV screens to sniff out any cadmium they might contain. Assuming the HISENSE isn't cadmium-free, like I said, I don't know if what Samsung says about its certifications is true. We'll just have to take their word for it. And I also don't know if the HISENSE U6QV actually has quantum dot color technology. But anyway, if we look at the results in terms of color and brightness, it's true that in both standard dynamic range and high dynamic range, regardless of the picture mode, the result looks somewhat better and more appealing on the Samsung. Although for many users, the results on the HISENSE are more pleasing. And as I've always said, when it comes to colors, it all depends on personal taste, although experts might recommend other options. Before I continue, I remind you guys, I will appreciate a lot your support by acquiring a membership through my Patreon page. This will help me a lot to keep creating content. Thank you so much. Now, if we look at performance in dark scenes, you need to know the following. Look, currently brands can legally claim that their smart TVs are mini LED models, even if their backlighting technology isn't full array. So the LED backlighting technology that Samsung uses in this model consists of a kind of thin, elongated tubes. The brand has named this technology Quantum Matrix Technology Slim, which is quite an impressive and catching name. On the other hand, our beloved HISENSE U6QV does include full array backlighting technology with, of course, local dimming, featuring a greater number of dimming zones. The result on the Samsung isn't as bad as I expected, but from my perspective, the HISENSE offers a better balance between black depth and level of detail. However, this could also come down to personal preference, and perhaps many people, blinded by their fandom, might be led to believe that the Samsung performs better. But please tell us, what do you think? Which model do you consider to have better performance in dark scenes? The uniformity of gray tones is slightly better on the Samsung, exhibiting less of a dirty screen effect. However, when viewing content with a high color volume, I don't find the dirty screen effect bothersome on the HISENSE, and it will be even less so on the QN70F. Regarding motion handling, while both models can reduce the judder effect either manually or automatically, I must say the Samsung performs slightly better. The results are smoother, with fewer artifacts. However, I don't find the artifacts in the HISENSE to be distracting. Speaking of image upscaling, I have to say that the Samsung performs slightly better, though not by a huge margin. Let me explain. First, remember that no current 4K TV will display 4K results if the content resolution is low. Don't be fooled when salespeople offers you the opposite. However, if that were the case, both TVs will attempt to show you the smoothest possible result with as few pixelated areas as possible, and the QN70F does a slightly better job. And if we look at viewing angles, you should know that the results are equally poor on both models, but this is normal because they have VA panels. This means that the pixel configuration applied to their LCD screens uses vertical alignment. However, this allows them to perform better in dark scenes compared to a TV with an IPS or ADS panel. If we look at the gaming area, the difference is more noticeable in favor of the Samsung QN70F. Starting with its 4 HDMI 2.1 ports compatible with the 120Hz and 144Hz in 4K, along with variable refresh rate technologies. The HISENSE, on the other hand, only supports up to 60Hz in 4K and 120Hz, but only up to 1080p. And while it's true that the HISENSE allows you to play games with Dolby Vision, if your console and the video game allows it, while the Samsung doesn't, the truth is, as I've often said in many videos, Dolby Vision technology isn't anything special. Both models have their respective game bars with different functions, such as displaying an on-screen crosshair and a zoom option that some users might find useful. And of course, what I consider most important, the picture modes they offer, so you can easily adjust the color, brightness, and color temperature. Regarding input lag, both TVs perform well and most people would probably be satisfied. But speaking of overall performance, while the HISENSE delivers very decent results for someone who isn't too demanding, the Samsung is of course the clear winner. Why? Well, you won't notice ghosting effect on the Samsung, or at least I didn't notice it, and I don't know if a highly trained gamer would notice it. But on the HISENSE, for example, I did perceive a bit of ghosting effect, especially in very dark scenes with fast movements, although I don't consider it alarming or particularly distracting.
For the Smart TV features, which also should be a key consideration, the Samsung uses Tizen operating system while the HISENSE uses VIDA.
Neither is based on Android, so you can't install APK files on them. Now, speaking of its speaker systems, we could say they're fine, decent in terms of clarity, and in fact the result is very similar between them. But it's true that they're not that impressive in terms of bass. Here's a short test so you can get a general idea of how they might perform in real-world use. So to wrap up and conclude, buy the Samsung if you love the brand, if you don't mind its LED backlighting technology, because at least its performance in dark scenes isn't too bad. If you want a bit more brightness and more vibrant saturated colors, if you prefer its operating system, the design of its remote control,
and very importantly, if you need a smart TV with 4 HDMI 2.1 ports compatible with 120Hz and 144Hz in 4K.
On the other hand, buy the HISENSE if you have a much lower budget, or if you simply don't want to spend a lot of money, or if you'd rather spend that extra difference on a soundbar or, for example, extra years of warranty. Buy it if you don't mind its operating system, its giant remote, and if you don't need it for gaming, or if playing in 4K at 60Hz or at 120Hz up to 1080p is enough. And very importantly, buy it if you want a TV with full array backlighting technology with mini LEDs for better balance in dark scenes. That's all. I'd really appreciate your support by becoming a member on my Patreon page. Click the like button if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time.